Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We want to welcome and thank you guys for joining today's webinar, Media in the Digital Age, the Death of Analog Broadcasting. In today's presentation, we will walk you through and focus on a few key points. How broadcast media became too big to fail, content creation and building your own brain trust, distribution, empowering every employee with audience data, monetization, inviting your audience to the negotiation table, and then finally our conclusion, the one thing that ratings never told us. My name is Lisa Lopez. I'm the content specialist here at Fuel Cycle, and I'm very excited to have you all with us today. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. If you have any questions at any time throughout today's presentation, feel free to submit them to either the question or chat box inside the GoToWebinar interface. We will catalog them throughout the presentation and come back to them at the end of the presentation. Also, I wanted to mention, if you have joined us before, we have a substantial catalog of case studies, white papers, webinars, and industry resources located at fuelcycle.com under the resources section, which I encourage you to take a look at when you have time. Today's webinar should take about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll go into a 10 to 15 minute Q&A session. With that, I would like to introduce our presenters today. Jared Yagi is our Client Success Manager here at Fuel Cycle. We have Jackie Parzavand, Research Manager, Jenny Yee, a Research Manager at Fuel Cycle, and then finally Alexis Long, our Research Associate. So without further introduction, I will hand this over to Alexis, who will be starting out with the current state of broadcast media.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm really happy we're having this conversation today. You know, the demise of advertisement-driven media is really an interesting story to analyze because you can absolutely argue that we're all still watching it unfold. Up until recently, media consumption was based on the simple bargain between audiences and broadcasters. Broadcasters provided audiences with free entertainment in exchange for really dealing with the minor annoyances associated with short sponsored interruptions. And as a result, most broadcast media companies experienced not only vast financial gains, but they also dealt with little to no competition. Competition that for consumers translates into options was nearly non-existent. And this scenario was really the same for radio, TV, and print channels, each which dominated their respective audiences with little effort. So if we fast forward to the early 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, we start to see the first dents made in the broadcast media industry and really in the way that audiences consume media. Cable TV providers begin to offer hundreds of new channels to consumers, which instantly increased competition, which was then compounded by technological advances like TiVo and other DVR services, ultimately giving consumers the brand new luxury of being able to customize their media consumption, not only to their desires, but really to their schedules as well. If you add to that the invention of the internet, now consumers have nothing but options, including the ability to share content with people around the world with just the click of a button and oftentimes for free. If the broadcast media industry has positioned itself to get ahead of these industry-wide changes, leveraging existing market share and relationships with audiences, we likely wouldn't be having this conversation today, but we're here, and that makes this conversation incredibly important. Now, unconstrained by traditional programming schedules, audiences are consuming record amounts and record varieties of content across a range of devices and at any hour of the day or night. As a result, we're seeing broadcast mainstays like NBC and CBS taking a chance on web series and traditional print media ditching their long-time medium for digital channels. As if that's not enough, on-demand platforms risk breaking that original media bargain entirely, as now they're offering ad-free content for little cost. All of that being said, the demise of advertisement-driven media is a lesson not only in innovation, but really it's a bit of a cautionary tale centered on the importance of staying ahead of consumers' wants and needs. And cultivating that consumer centricity is why we're here today, and as my colleagues are going to explain, it really begins with content creation, distribution, and monetization.
So like Alexis mentioned, the traditional media field is evolving. We've got new players like YouTube, digital podcasts, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, you can go on, and not just in the traditional media space, which was TV. Now we've got streaming services, apps, and other digital services like Spotify. With all this new competition and playing fields, we're pushing traditional media into a corner and forcing it all to remain competitive. With mainstream media taking hits in viewership, credibility, and trust, the need for content that appeals and connects with people is now more important than ever. And to do this, we need to understand our audience and their nuanced preferences, such as what sort of content they're interested in, miniseries or full TV movies, when they want to see it, on Thursdays or Sundays, and even where. It's no longer just cable, but now we have to consider subscription-based services, mobile-friendly viewing, and free streaming websites. What some of our current media network communities are already doing to be at the forefront of this evolvement is asking their members when and where they want to view shows, conducting affinity and awareness surveys for something like a nostalgic TV revamp, or maybe turning a movie into a TV show, or running live chats with show premieres in real time to obtain first impression feedback. Reader's Digest recently asked what sort of topics their audiences wanted to hear during the recent presidential campaigns. And gaining these sort of insights can help and leverage your understanding of these nuanced preferences of your viewers, where you can reach them and how you can reach them, helping you create and distribute content that will better appeal to your audiences.
Thank you, Jenny. And that really is a great lead into what I wanted to discuss. Actually, in recent times, the role of broadcast media has shifted its relationship with its consumers, as you touched upon. Consumers now demand a customized experience that is tailored to their individual schedule and their desire for media consumption. This shift in relationship is the reason why every media company should be on the verge of repurposing itself into a tech company. In order to supply Americans with the average 60 hours of media consumption per week, media broadcast companies must make content available not only on demand, but across numerous amounts of formats. The average American alone owns about 4 devices, which are used to consume media in different ways throughout their day. Media broadcasting companies must make their content available in many formats to compete with who are now the media giants like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and YouTube. This competitive marketplace is the fire that fuels broadcast media companies' shift into the technology industry. Digital upstarts that have embraced this shift are successfully reaching current and future prospects through non-traditional channels like YouTube and Facebook. These companies are not providing consumers with every possible platform or device. It's important to actually note that they're instead identifying the most strategic channels to stretch their reach to. No matter what content is actually being provided, leadership should be continuously testing emerging channels to keep their company ahead of their competitors. One of our media broadcast companies, for example, used the platform to test different ways viewers are consuming their media based off of genre of the content. And we found some really interesting results indicating that consumers prefer to watch different show genres at different times, on different devices, and even in different formats. This understanding of how consumers are watching their shows really allow clients such as this to better gauge how to target their viewers throughout their journey of viewership. And so now we kind of go into the, why does this matter so much? And the reason why leadership must continuously test new channels of consumption is really linked to the consumer's ability to shift so quickly in their methods of media consumption. Thus, the data gathering on testing of these channels is crucial for all departments of the company and really should be utilized in every business decision that they make. Company leaders such as product managers, R&D developers, roadmap builders, they're all included in making more effective decisions and understanding how this fragile relationship with consumers is in an ever-changing state. With the right consumer intelligence platform and partner, broadcasting companies can be and should be guided to the most appropriate business decisions that incorporate the voice of your consumer.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. And I agree. It is very interesting in how we could incorporate feedback into actual features. But will customers pay money for content? Fortunately, there have been promising signs that consumers are willing to pay for their content, depending on the mission of the organization or the structure of the paid membership. In fact, 2/3 of consumers are willing to tolerate branded messages if they cater to their preferences or if it's content that they enjoy. For example, newspaper companies have converted millions of readers into paying customers through metered paywalls and prominent on-site calls to action. And now, heavy video users are paying monthly fees to enjoy ad-free experiences through services like YouTube Red or HBO Go. With that, you can directly ask your consumers how much they would be willing to pay for a monthly subscription for an all-access to your content. In one of our media and entertainment communities, members are asked to provide their perspective on upcoming product releases. From the initial ad testing to actually having members test the products, brands are listening to this unfiltered feedback to structure and propose a paid relationship with their readers or viewers. Media companies can also use their communities to provide greater value to their advertising partners. Elle Magazine currently uses this strategy to deepen its brand-client relationships by allowing their advertisers to run message and product testing to members of the Elle community. The community allows members to provide honest, unfiltered feedback on the products or ads that they are testing in real time, and results are turned back around to them very quickly. This provides their advertisers with the data they need to feel confident making informed decisions in their campaigns and ultimately allows for bigger budgets in the future. So, in conclusion, ratings can never reveal or provide us with the why something was popular, why consumers were tuning into a show, where new audiences were coming from, or what caused someone to stop watching after weeks or months of devoted fandom. Only by listening directly to the voice of the customer can we understand true viewership loyalty. So get in touch with the voice of your customer and respond to their needs and wants before it's too late and a competitor beats you to the punch.
Thank you, guys. That was very informative and interesting to learn. I've got a handful of questions that have come in so far. The first question comes from Mark, who wants to know, how do companies like Elle work with their advertisers to enhance the customer experience? And I'm going to hand this over to Jared.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So Elle works with their advertisers by providing exclusive opportunities for their members to be able to test the advertisers' products. So members are actually sent a sample to test, and they go through a couple of weeks of actually testing the product, and then they provide real-time feedback to their advertisers through surveys, discussions, live chat, and diary studies.
Awesome. Okay, great. So the next question comes from Sarah, and she asks, when you are serving a diverse audience, how can you deliver a more personalized content experience? And I'm going to hand this over to you, Jenny.
Yeah, so with the new age of creating content that speaks directly to a certain group of people, our current media networks are testing out different platforms and media to reach out to these audiences. Because we're no longer taking on just a cable outline, we're going into mobile apps, streaming websites. A lot of our partners right now are testing those out and figuring out where they can reach those customers.
All right, great. Well, I think that's all the questions that we've had so far. If anyone is out there and still on the fence about whether to submit their questions, now would be the time. In the meantime, I will send any questions that come in later to our team to answer individually, if you do have any follow-up questions. Thank you so much to Jackie, Jared, Jenny, and Alexis for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in future webinars.